Welcome to today's episode of Wellness Wednesdays. I am Dr. Katherine Y. Brown, your host. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Sabina Mohyuddin. Welcome, Sabina.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, for having me today.
Absolutely. Now, you're family already because we are on weekly meetings together. We have been for a while discussing, COVID-19 and what is happening in the community. But for those people who don't get that luxury to work with you as much as I do, tell them about your background and some of the specific things that you're doing in the community.
Yes, so I am the executive director of the American Muslim Advisory Council, and we are a statewide organization that works to empower the Muslim community through civic engagement, community building, and media relations. And so there are about 70,000 Muslims across the state and over 45,000 in Middle Tennessee. And so, our focus was more on civic engagement, working with mosques across the state and community leaders, and try to build a strong Muslim community. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we found ourselves in a place where we were looked upon to help our communities navigate this new reality of the pandemic. And so we started doing educational webinars on COVID. We started to advocate for more resources for our community so that, they had the food that they needed, and that their issues were being brought forward as people were forced to stay home or they weren't, schools were being closed. And so we just found ourselves pivoting in our work and responding to COVID. And when the vaccines came out, we were helping arrange COVID vaccination clinics at the mosque. So really bringing it to the community. And I think one of the things we saw was the need for trusted messengers, right? So the city had, their plan and their response to COVID, but it wasn't really reaching our communities, the Muslim community.
Is that, why do you think it didn't reach the Muslim community? Was it that the messaging wasn't being directed there, or is it some other reason why?
So yes, that's one thing, that the message was not directed at Muslims in the way that would really speak to Muslims, right? And so using messaging that incorporates a religious point of view. And it's very interesting because in Islam, there's actually sayings of the Prophet Muhammad about if you're in a place where there is a epidemic or a disease going around, you should not travel outside that place because you don't want to spread it. And if you know there's a place where there's a disease being epidemic, you should not go to that place. So actually Islam has some instructions on how to ensure the well-being of the health of the community. And so being able to say, look, from an Islamic perspective, it is important we understand what these directives were in terms of, that we should stay home, we should mask up, we had to close the mosque, like many churches were closed. And there was pushback in the community. Do we really need to do this? But really bringing in Muslim leaders to explain, yes, we have a religious responsibility to keep our communities safe. So I think, and then another thing is it's how much our, whether the health department or government agencies, how well connected were they with the Muslim communities to begin with? And so all of a sudden they want our communities to listen to what they say, but you have to build trust. And that's where AMAC was kind of like that in-between organization that could help build that trust. Yeah.
Sabina, you brought up so many points, and I don't really want to miss any of these points, because one, you talked about, if you don't have an existing relationship with a community, what would make them want to listen to you now that there is a pandemic happening? That is a true point. The other point that you raised is that messaging has to be specific to the needs of the community and be written or phrased in a way where the community understands that it's directed to them. So most of the messaging was basically, you remember the original stuff, stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay home. I want to use that as an example. So if that is the example, then how would your organization have phrased, stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands? How should that have been targeted to better fit the needs of the community?
Right. I think, like, stay safe for whom, right? I think being specific, like, who are you doing it for? You're doing it for your loved ones, because you have a responsibility. And, if from a religious point of view, you have a God-given responsibility to keep your family safe.
And so, Sabina, and this is what I want. I do want you to elaborate, because I'm really asking you, because we have viewers around the world, and you have shared this with us on the meetings that I'm on with you, but I'm not convinced that someone who's watching this right now really understands what you're saying. It's a difference. And for our viewers, don't miss what she said. She's like, it's one thing to say, stay safe, but there's a different message when you say, stay safe for your loved ones. It's your religious responsibility. So that messaging would be better received. I love that. Is there any other way that, an example just as specific as that, where you would see a traditional message and it should have been translated in a different way? Because I think people are hearing you, and I want them to hear you, because you're saving lives.
So, there's one thing that I think about attitudes that we have in our community, especially faith-based communities, on like, if something happens, it was just God's will. Like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's fate. And we have a beautiful saying of the Prophet Muhammad that says, tie your camel and put your trust in God. So, we always emphasize in Islam, you put your trust in God. And so some people would think that, well, I don't have to take all these safety precautions, because all I have to do is put my trust in God. Whatever will happen, happen. But the idea, tie your camel, like, you do your part to stay safe. So there's that personal responsibility that we have to take, and being able to say that. And we had our imams, our religious leaders, say that, and have to emphasize that. So there wasn't this attitude, just whatever's going to happen, it's God's will, I put my trust in God. But yes, you do that, but you tie your camel, you do your part, that we have a personal responsibility. So just seeing the issue from a personal responsibility, but then also a communal responsibility. You're responsible to your friends and family.
I love it. First of all, thank you for the way that you always explain that in a way that people can understand it. Because if we can't get the message to the community, we can't help save lives. And also for the community to empower, right, and come from within and do what it needs to do for itself as well. So I think there's a lot of different conversations. So what does wellness look like for you now as opposed to during the pandemic? Because things have changed a lot.
I think understanding that wellness is not, absolutely has a physical component, that being able to get out and move about. I think, with the pandemic, a lot of people just was at home and just realized even going to the store is getting some movement more than working all day at home, and that we need that physical, physical action in our day. But the other piece is the mental health, and I think that's what the pandemic highlighted, that a lot of people suffered, their mental health suffered because they weren't out and active, they weren't physically active, and then they weren't seen around friends and family, and so how do we address those issues? And for me, I mean, personally, I think, during the pandemic, I was fortunate that, I had two of my children were still at home. One was in high school. And then I had family nearby. So for my mental health, I was able to get out, see my family, even though, there were a lot of restrictions. But not everyone had that. And so, making sure that we are taking care of the mental health of our community, I think it's important.
Beautiful. I'm so glad that you said that. Now, I want everyone to know two things. How can they get in touch with you? Any website, social media information, and then I want you to tell us about your upcoming events, ways that we can support the work that you are doing, because I truly honor you for all the ways that you are helping to educate and raise awareness. So will you help us by educating our viewers on how they can follow your work and get connected with you? And then what are you doing coming up?
Thank you. Well, you can follow us on Facebook at American Muslim Advisory Council, or Instagram and Twitter at AMACTN, AMACTN. Or you can look at our website, sign up for our newsletter. I think our newsletter is the best way to keep up with what's going on, events coming up, but that's at amactn.org. And so events coming up, as you know, we're working on
a lot.
So yeah, vaccination events, especially with the new vaccine that has come out. I think a lot of people are they really take advantage of these free events in places that are convenient to them, so at mosques. So we have one planned in Chattanooga on October 14th, and later this month we have one in Nashville. So that's on the COVID side of the world. On the other side of the world, we're doing some activities in Memphis around civic engagement and getting people ready for the November elections, and we'll have them in Nashville and Knoxville also.
Oh, I love it. Now, listen, this video is going to be archived for a long time. So today is September 28th, 2022. And so the events that Sabina is talking about are October and November 2022, respectively. However, if you are watching this Wellness Wednesday episode after those dates, please go to her website, where you can find more information about the current work. Because what I do know about Sabina is that she's always doing something in the community. What is something that you want to share with our viewers as it relates to COVID-19 that I have not asked you? Because I told you this episode is all about you and what you and what we can learn from your work.
Well, I don't know. I know one of the questions was what good habits you created, and unfortunately, I was thinking back. I think I created really terrible work habits, because you know when you're working at home, you don't have that traditional 9 to 5 kind of timing, and things kind of spill over to the evening. But one thing I started when the pandemic hit was, before that, I think I hardly ever watched anything on Netflix. and so one of the first shows I watched was The People versus O.J. Simpson, and I loved it. And so in the last 2 years, especially with my daughter, we've been watching different series together, and I just like that as a family time, being able to just kind of relax at night and look forward to watching something.
I love it. You know, speaking about the workplace and habits, some people have told me that they felt that they had better personal health habits in terms of nutrition, like eating, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner when they were working at home versus being in the office. Have you had people tell you anything similar?
I think there's, you know, two sides that sword. Being at home is access to your pantry 24/7, right? And so you can always graze and go pick up chips.
So you got to be responsible what they put in the house.
Yes, exactly. But I think overall it's just better timing when I had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I just love, because I was at home, you know, my son was in high school, and just being able to make him lunch, you know, or just ask him, you know, what are you going to eat? And seeing the kids in the day, even though they knew that I was busy, and they know all about my work, because they're like, you don't use headphones enough. So
so they can go out and educate the community, because they have heard you over and over. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, listen, I tell people all the time, once you come on Wellness Wednesdays with me, just know that you are forever family on this show, and we always welcome you back. I am going to have our team share your information below so that people can, again, follow up on the website and your social media handles. And I just want to tell you, thank you for your work, because when we think about the people who are on the front lines helping to save lives, oftentimes people forgot that they too were experiencing all of the different emotions of the pandemic. So I want you to know how much we appreciate you, because I know that you went through your own transitions, right? By virtue of living through a pandemic.
Oh no, I appreciate you asking me to be on the show and hearing more different perspectives.
Yes, and different perspectives. And for our viewers, if you deal in dissemination strategies, listen to what Sabina said. All messages are not created the same. And so if you want a community to know that that information is for them, ask someone from the community, is the information that you created applicable to that community? Because if you never ask the question and you're not of the community, how would you know? Yeah, Sabina, any thoughts on that? Is because I'm getting ready to close out, but I don't want people to miss that takeaway that you said. To put messaging out there was not effective if the community didn't know that the messaging was for them.
And then who the messenger is. I think that's important also.
Yes, because you said all the leaders came together. So think about who the messenger is. Who is the trusted voice of that community? So powerful, so powerful. All right, for our viewers around the world, you have just met the amazing Sabina, who is doing dynamic work. Will you do us a favor? We want you to comment below. We want you to like this message and share this message, because other people need to see today's episode of Wellness Wednesdays. Until next time, I am Dr. Katherine Y. Brown, your host. Stay healthy, stay well, and share this message. Have a great day.
Thank you.